I think people misinterpret what attraction marketing is. I think they think they're going to get so prolific at social media because, let's be honest, who wants to talk to people? If you don't have to be rejected by people and you can just attract people, that's the goal, that's the dream. And because of that, people chase the shortcuts when in the end it's the long road.
Welcome to Shift, an exclusive podcast by DSN. I'm your host, Blake Mallon, and this is where high-performing entrepreneurs and experts share their most powerful shifts in mindset, skill set, and strategy to help you accelerate your business and amplify your impact. I challenge you to be present, open your mind, and let the shift begin.
Welcome to Shift. I'm your host, Blake Mallon. Today's guest is someone that has not just built success in this profession. I'd like to say he has completely redefined what success means and looks like for himself and so many across the entire direct selling channel. RobSperry has been full-time in the direct selling industry for over 17 years now. And what I love about his journey and his story is in that time, he's done something that quite honestly, very few have ever really done. He achieved top tier success as a distributor in the field, and then transitioned into one of the most sought after coaches, consultants, keynote speakers across the entire channel today. While he was in the field, he was the number one recruiter in a company of a legacy brand, millions of distributors, built teams in the field across 40 countries, actually transitioned to launching a brand new brand that got off to a tremendous start, over 1 million in sales across that company in its first month. And then through now his service and his content, he has an industry-specific podcast that's been listened to in 176 countries. Talk about a global reach. He's authored 17 books within the profession. And it's all around his passion for helping leaders level up their mindset, their skills, and the systems that it takes to go achieve their goals within this profession. And beyond all the achievements, beyond all the accolades, I've had the pleasure of building a personal relationship with Rob. And what I love most is he lives what he teaches. He's really about family, relationships, impact. I'm a huge fan of his personal life motto that you got to die with memories and not dreams. I know there's a story behind that we might get to today. So if you're ready to lead differently, if you're ready to grow deeper, if you're ready to create something that lasts, today's conversation is going to be for you. So let's dive in. Rob, how you doing, brother?
Well, thanks for the introduction. And it still doesn't get old in the sense you still feel a little uncomfortable when you hear like all the accomplishments because people don't get it here right. Like the many more failures are failing forward faster, as John Maxwell says. But I appreciate it, and likewise, I love how we get to always talk about family and the purpose. Right? We all want to make more money, want to have more time, but for what? Right? And so it's been fun to get to know you and excited to be on today.
Well, I always love our conversations. I know we always find ourselves like in the back of a room at an industry event, or like, we just got connected or exchanging messages online. And, I've always just aligned, right, kind of with who you are as a person. And, the mission that you're on resonates deeply. And I'm super excited for today because you really do have a unique perspective across the channel. We've had some amazing leaders from so many awesome companies and brands, right, that have achieved huge feats, but it's rare to have, someone like yourself that has done that in the field and now has an input, right, from so many leaders across the channel today. So excited to unpack and kind of glean some perspective from what you're plugged into, but let's kind of rewind. So 17 years. All right. What got you into the industry? What made you fall in love with direct selling? What allowed you to transition into the role you're taking today? Give us a glimpse on your journey.
All right. I'll give you the short version. So I live in Utah. And if you haven't been approached by 5 or 6 network marketing companies, you don't have friends. So I was approached by 11 different network marketing companies. And I always thought you only do network marketing if things are like really, really bad. Like you just don't do network marketing. That was my perception because I was approached the wrong way, had the wrong perception, right? You go on and on and on. So at this point, I had played tennis, semi-pro tennis, right? College tennis. I taught tennis. I was running a tennis club, dream job at age 24 years old when most tennis club directors or managers they're 50 years old. So I'm thinking I'm living the dream. I'm making at that time running a tennis club. We're not talking network marketing money,
Uh-huh.
right? Six figures, which I thought, who knows what that is with inflation now, but 2004, I'm like, this is the dream, right? Running a tennis club age 24. Within a year, I quickly realized I couldn't really make much more money. I mean, you raise prices by a little bit. Uh, I just really couldn't make much more money. I kept trying, and the owners of the club would cut my pay a little bit on percentages, so it ended up being the same for more work. So I started asking every person at the tennis club, what did you do? How did you make your money? And we're talking wildly successful people there. One guy sold his company for 1.6 billion. Like, we're talking these types of people, other people, right? Millionaires, other people, 100 plus million. So I'm like, what'd you do? How'd you make your money? So one guy, he happened to make his money in network marketing, but he didn't say network marketing. He just said, I do as little as possible. It's like pretty much retired, so do a lot of investments. And so long story short, got to know him over the course of 3 years. I still didn't even know he did network marketing. I thought he was like corporate for some network marketing company. Now he doesn't work for him anymore. And he's the one who approached me. He approached me about doing network marketing. He said he was going to come out of retirement, and he was really hungry, and he was going to work hard, and he was going to teach me how to do it. And at first I didn't know he was talking about network marketing. I thought when he was talking about all these philosophies, it was like real estate development, because he owns shopping malls and tons of land. And then he tells me it's network marketing. I started laughing.
Mm-hmm.
He looks at me and he's like, are you laughing? I'm like, yeah. He's like, network marketing done wrong is your biggest nightmare. But he said, done right, it's your greatest dream. You got products or services that you love. He said, you've got time freedom with people that you love. You get to live life on purpose. He says, for me, I made the sacrifices, and now every day's a birthday. Every day's an anniversary. Every day's a holiday. He said, so if you're willing to grind, because this will be the hardest thing you've ever done, every day can be a birthday, a holiday, and an anniversary. And I'm sitting there like, dang, like I've never heard anyone talk to me like this. And so I said, all right, let's roll. And so the short version, I got started, and of course went through the highest of highs and the lowest of lows. I just failed forward faster than most people.
Well, you can't end there without me going deeper on those. So the highs, we always love talking about highs, right? And that's generally what we gravitate to, especially kind of in this world. It shows people what's possible, right? It's exciting, it's easy. But you and I both know, right, that the lessons are in the valleys, right? They're in the lows. So tell me a moment that maybe best describes the peak for you, right? A high moment. Maybe it was a moment, an idea, a place, and then contrast that with maybe a single moment that allows us to have a perspective on one of the low points. Give us those two moments in your journey.
Yeah, I'm going to give the opposite of most, in the sense that most people, it's struggle, success. Mine was massive success, struggle, struggle. Mm-hmm. And so I started out really hot. Doing this business in August, typically a slower month. Doesn't have to be if you're tuning in, but typically a slower month. And I generated, I'm not going to talk about income, but let's just tell you, I generated in sales, I did over $45,000 in sales in 3 weeks in part-time. And so you can imagine the bonus checks. It was surreal. I'd never made that amount of money in a month of my life. Mm-hmm. So of course I'm thinking, like, they talk about residual income, right? I don't understand the difference between bonus and residual income. Okay, guys, like, it took me a while to learn some things, but I did take massive action. And so I quit my job.
Oh, wow.
Big mistake. I didn't know what I was doing. And this was a career. This wasn't just a job. It was a dream job. And I quit it after 3 weeks. So my second month, my check went down by about 80%. Third month, it went down again. Then it went down again. And then my fifth month, at this point, I'm working 80 hours a week. Well, let's be honest. It was fake work. was actually
Mhm.
managing. I was not leading. I was trying to get everyone else to do what I did month one, but not what I was currently doing. I was hoping that one person or two people would just do what I did, and then I was set for life. Like the back of my mind, it wasn't network marketing. It was net dreaming, net hoping, net lottery ticket marketing. And so
Mhm.
my fifth month, the check comes in. I'm going to tell you guys what it was because it was so low that this won't be an income claim.
This is the opposite of a
Quite
claim.
the opposite. Working 80 hours a week. I'll tell you what it is, but just know that I could have worked at McDonald's making minimum wage and I would have been filthy rich compared to this check. It was less than $400 for the month.
Mhm.
There was no direct deposit. So the check came in and my wife looks at the check and she says, is this going to work? Right. Cause I mean, at the time, my wife and I, right, we had two kids at that time and this was our sole source of income. And I remember looking at that check and I'm like, uh-huh. And in my mind, I'm like, I have no clue what I just got myself into. And that's where I had to have that tough conversation with myself of I'm pretending to work. I'm filling time, but I'm not leading. I'm managing and they don't need a manager. And I've heard this, but I still am trying to cheat the grind. I'm trying to cheat, the grind and make things happen. And that's not real work. That's not real business. That's not how I grew up. That's not how I was taught. And so I had to get back to actually the true income producing activities. Working in this business is talking to brand new people about your business or your
Mhm.
products. And so I did that. And my volume went up by, I think it was threefold, never drop below that. And it was just such a great learning lesson for me where I started out the peak and saw what was possible. And I got away from what got me there for various reasons, right? That we go through and went through that massive just valley, that bridge of tears that every leader has to go through.
I'm curious, and I don't know your full story. Was there another one of those peak and then valley again moments later on? Like, did you go there, you went through the crash and you rebuilt, and was it stable right from that point forward? Or later on in your journey, did you go through another version of that extreme high and again that extreme low? I'm just curious if the cycle repeated.
I mean, you know the answer. That's why you're asking without knowing my story, because every leader has to go through that over and over again, right? It's like you got to climb the mountain again, and you have learning lessons and relearning lessons, right? You got to relearn things. So absolutely, I do believe I do know I created a higher low, meaning the base had increased. So the low wasn't as low the next time, but you get caught up, and we see it with economies. That's why they go through recessions over and over again, because it's human nature. And so for me, I do remember where I started to transition from a leader of followers into a leader of leaders. And as I started doing that, I started catching myself again when the checks were high into management mode, because when things are good, we typically think they're better than they really are. Whereas when things are bad, we think they're worse than they really are. We're very like dramatic and emotional creatures. And so I thought things were better than they really were. And so I started going on cruise control and coasting and trying to manage these leaders. And as it can happen in the business, one of these leaders that was a big leader decided to leave the business. And that was a huge blow to my business. I wasn't mad at them. Of course, your feelings are a little bit hurt, but I just thought whether they're making the right or wrong decision, it doesn't matter. As Jim Rohn says, right? You got to taking 100% responsibility is the peak of your maturity. And so I had to take that responsibility. So you know what? Like I stopped leading. And so I do believe that almost every leader I've ever worked with goes through this multiple times. The goal is that you go through it less often, and hopefully you get better prepared to bounce out of it quicker, because very few we're always in the income producing activities, right? Like let's break it down, and you're going to laugh at this, Blake. Most people, including leaders, they just do it less often. They work at the end of the month and they create about, and I'm guessing, right? Like 80% of new enrollments, right? Because urgency is synonymous with wealth. And then those last, say, 5 days of the month carry a little bit over to the beginning of the month. Maybe that's 4 or 5 more days. So then that means about the 6th through the 24th, everyone's fake working. Like, hey, did you watch the training? Right? Like, and they're like, oh, did you watch this? I tagged you on that. Like, hey, are we going to this? And they're cruise control because we operate off of deadlines. Well, the leaders go through variations of that, but they're more in those income producing activities and they're leading more often. So I had to learn, relearn this over and over and over again. I got better at it. I'd stay in it longer, right? When I fell out of it, I'd get back into it, the income producing activities quicker and quicker. But it's definitely a lesson that everyone's got to learn over and over again.
I had a feeling, like as you alluded to,
I knew you knew.
I mean, and I don't know your full story, right? But I know, Rob, when I look at my journey, it very much is like the peak to valley, right? And, the mountain top to the bottom. And you think, as an entrepreneur that at some point that cycle will end, right? And it's just going to be this perpetual growth trajectory. And at least in my 25 years, I haven't found that yet. So I love asking other entrepreneurs that have the perspective if they have. And you also have the vantage point of working with a lot of leaders, right, throughout the channel. Let me just go a little bit deeper in those reinvention seasons, because I've found that while we all think that the magic happens in the part of our story from like where you are to the growth, right? Everybody wants to know, well, what was the mindset? What was the belief? What did you do different in the growth that created the momentum, that created the victory? And there's not enough people really asking the question of, well, no, when you were in the dip, the plateau, the stuck, the reinvention season, what was it there that actually allowed you to make the turn and go at it again? Because in my perspective, it's that makes the difference if you're going to make it big, make it long term, right, in this channel and as an entrepreneur. So take me to those either from your own perspective or now having coached, obviously, a lot of people that maybe are in those seasons. What are the common traits, either beliefs or skills, that help someone reinvent when they're in that plateau period from your perspective?
For sure. Whether that's burnout, whether that's whatever the reason is, right? And the word you just gave is perspective. So first off, and I'm going to say this, and this is a long answer. I'm going to try to go quick but deep on this, is burnout really is a perspective. So it may be burnout, it may not be, you just unplugged, but most of the time it's some sort of burnout. If someone's burnout, let's just say you're burnout and you're listening to this right now, and then all of a sudden someone joins your team and brings in 50 people, are you still burnt out? The answer is no. It's a perspective of the direction you feel like you're headed and the expectation of what it's going to take. So that right there helps you understand, okay, I get that, but I'm still feeling this way right now, as Blake's saying, like, how do I get out of this? It's going to take a little bit of everything. So yes, the belief levels, I believe the 5 really core beliefs is, what's your belief? And I just do this as self-audit. On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your belief in the network marketing profession? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's your belief in your company? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the belief in your products? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the belief in your, I'll call it leadership/systems, right? On a scale of 1 to 10, what's the belief in yourself? And that's the hardest person you're ever going to have to recruit, is yourself. So you do that, and then wherever you fall short, look for evidence to help fill that gap. If the belief in yourself is low, is there someone that you feel like maybe doesn't have as many skills as you, but's had a lot of success? The answer is always yes, right? We know that in every company, and that's what's empowering about this profession. So the successful use comparisons like that to empower them. It motivates them. When my friends tell me how much success they've had, and it's 100 times more than me, I'm empowered. The unsuccessful or poor mindset uses the comparison to always think, what's wrong with me? So I want to challenge you to use it to bring you up and to empower you. Then inside of that, those beliefs, there's 5 stages of belief. There's impossible. Like, it's not possible at all. It's impossible for me to do that. The second one is it's improbable. The third one is it's possible. The fourth one, probable. And the fifth one is inevitable. It's very hard to get to inevitable until you're at least to possible or probable. Like there's only so far the mind can see. There's only so much vision, right, we can have. Even if you have 20/20 vision, like you ask to see something far enough and you just can't see it, right? So you look at those and we're all in these 5 stages of belief. Now you could put a timestamp to those as well, right? Because one goal could be possible if it's this month, but if it's like do it in the next day, it's impossible. So that's a whole other hour in-depth training. So now where do we bring all this? What do we need to do? You do the self-audit on where you're at. Yes, you're going to level up even the personal development stuff. I know it sounds cliche, but successful people just do the basics better. You can watch the professional golfers, right? I'm an amateur, right? Not even an amateur, right? I'm a wannabe, right? I've got a good foot wedge, right? No one's looking. I kick the ball really well. That's it. But they putt from 3 feet. You go watch the tennis players, right? They're warming up from half court. You watch the basketball players. They're right up there, layups, like just very simple stuff. But what do we try to do? We try to overcomplicate and do the hard things. So what are the basics that you were taught at the beginning? The personal development, right? Look for evidence to help build those beliefs as you go. Get those little mini wins as you go. After that, there's no amount of thinking, even when we increase our beliefs, that will compensate for lack of action, right? I can't just always build up all these beliefs and then all of a sudden I'm feeling good about myself without taking any action. So the beliefs are hopefully to help your perspective to get you through these tough times. And so I believe that it's actually easier to rip the Band-Aid off. If possible, it's good to create a mini blitz for you. Not one that's too overwhelming, but one that's going to create a little bit of mini momentum for you. Because if you're out of that stage, right, as Blake's talking about, you're not going to get back in that stage from, well, I'm doing my 1 new invite a week. Like no one's like 6 weeks later, I'm feeling it, Blake. Like I'm feeling great. So I'm giving tough love, not fluff. And I'm not saying it's an easy answer. It's not easy to get out of that, but create a mini one for you. Now, some of you could do a week. Some of you like, I can't think that far, 3 days. Some of you like, you know what? I just got to do 1 day where that I take it 1 day at a time. And I'm going to do, for me, a blitz would be 10. So there's different levels depending on who you are, where you're at, what you've done, where you've been. But you need a short little burst of action because what's going to happen, you reach out to 10 and maybe one's interested. Sally's on the PTA. She's the crazy, awesome extrovert. She talks to everybody on the airplane, everyone at the grocery store. If she joins, it's going to explode. So now we're directional thinkers. We go to bed with dreams rather than with nightmares. And all of a sudden, the brain starts heading in that direction and you can start to build some habits. You can start to build some momentum as you go. And so that's a simple answer of some things that I would go through to do to help you get a little bit out of that rut that you're in.
Well, I love that answer. And I love that you gave it to us in a simple framework, right? That we can remember. I was writing down. I've never heard it put that way. I think it's super brilliant and spot on. And the reason I wanted to ask that and kind of shine a spotlight is for everybody listening, we all go through that in our journey, right? It's normal. So whether you're just starting out, you're in the climb, you're on the top of the mountain celebrating, or you're in the dip, or you're in the valley, or in that plateau, it's normal. We all go through it. And you know what? You're probably going to go through it again and again and again. And I love, Rob, how you said that the second base is higher than the first, but you still have another mountain ahead. And that is the journey, right? To reinvent, and to keep moving, forward. I love the way you kind of broke it down. And as you were talking, I kind of wrote like, it was kind of 2 buckets. It was like belief. Everything starts with belief. Inevitable. Is that what you said? Inevitable. Yeah. I love that. I'm always like, it's possible, but inevitable is even better. Like, so right, we got to go from it's possible, it's probable, it's inevitable. I will get there. But I love that you also went into action and activity. We got to believe we can, but then we got to do the work. We got to see it's possible, but we got to get into motion, right? We got to combine those 2 things. I hate globalizing or generalizing, but as a channel, at least in North America, we've kind of been in that season, right? Where we as a category of distribution went through kind of this meteoric rise through kind of this pandemic period. And as a channel, we're kind of in maybe a dip in some categories collectively. Now, caveat disclaimer, there's always companies growing right forward and companies going through a dip. There's always teams moving forward and teams going through a dip. There's always leaders moving forward and leaders going through a dip. As a whole, there's always people in different parts of the journey. But let me ask you from your perspective, because you're tapped into what I think is probably one of the largest online communities of 6 and 7 figure earners across all companies, brands, sectors in the channel. It might be the largest. And I know you do an amazing job moderating and listening and observing and coaching. So my question for you is like, when you look at the whole, what is working right now?
Yeah.
And what are some things that people are just missing right now that you see kind of across the whole?
Yeah. So we rewind, right? We had the dip and we got to understand what went wrong to understand what to fix and also study which groups are doing well. And the very simple answer of it is obviously when we had the chaos in the world, everyone's home and people are getting like checks from the government and extra money, a surplus, and attention is the number one currency of marketing. So everyone's on social media. Well, that was great. But with that equal advantage, right? When things are going well, we think they're better than they really are. Everyone was like unplugging. They weren't working as much because they were working half the time, making right twice as much. And not saying necessarily twice as much, some more, some less, but they were making a lot more, doing a lot less. And social media was working better than ever. You could make posts and people were selling like crazy. So social selling became huge. Well, the strength became the weakness because social media is a strategy, part of a bigger strategy, but it became the strategy. There's the issue right there. I am a huge proponent of social media done right, but this was social media done wrong as far as no one was, and again, we're generalizing, right? Most were not developing the skills. They were not developing leadership. And they also weren't marrying online with offline because it was so easy. Why would I want to do anything online? Why would I want to go to any events, right? Why? Because I'm making money in my underwear, right? It's like so easy. And so we saw the equal opposite reaction. We've been going through a social media recession, which isn't talked about enough. And people are like, well, why? It's not algorithms change. You have 100 times more reels than you had before. You have people that they're conditioned. They've seen this. Their expectations are higher, right? They know what's happening going on. It's tougher to cut through the clutter and all of that. So when we see all of those things happen, pockets tightening, right? So people are being more selective. Think of it as if you order 100 things a month and your pocket tightens, now you're ordering 80. So they're thinking your product they're ordering from you, did it make the cut? Did it make the cut? Because inflation, pockets are tightening, right? Did it make the cut? And so our value has to go up. Our skills and leadership have to go up. So the simple answer of those that I've seen that have done really well have understood the balance between, yes, social media is incredible, but social media balanced with also offline and in person. Now that's a combination of getting back to understanding the importance of your convention. I know many companies that I've worked with that are like, we are still 50% of what we used to be at in-person events. I know others, like Blake said, there's always some that are doing really well, but many are like, we still can't get those numbers. Many leaders stopped doing leadership team retreats. Many teams stopped doing, right, when you come in for your convention, why not make something extra of it and do some team events, maybe the day before, maybe the day after, like extra things. Because when you think about it, there's always going to be a new product that pops up somewhere in the world. that's going to have the magic secret sauce, pending patent, nothing you've ever heard of. And maybe it really is, or maybe it's just great marketing, or maybe it's deceptive marketing. But regardless, there's always going to be a new product that claims to be the best. And I believe you have great products. But really, the most important product, yes, we got to have great products and great compensation, but the X factor is the culture. Think about this. Whether you go to church or not, doesn't matter. People pay to go to church, whether it's tithing money, whether it's opportunity costs, whether it's driving there, because it's a community. And that's what we have. That is our uniqueness. That's our X factor. And everyone says they know that. But as Ralph Waldo Emerson says, what you do speaks so loudly, I cannot hear what you say. And the actions weren't showing that. So now many are starting to do that, and they're starting to see results. And others are like, where are my results? I'm like, you can't just plant a seed, say, where's my tree tomorrow? It takes time to get back into everybody rowing in the same direction and having that focus and that simplicity and understanding the importance of that. And so I believe the companies, I don't believe, I know this, the companies that I've seen that understand social media and the leaders, right? The leaders that are doing, and even the masses. If you're not a leader, maybe you figured it out and you're listening to this podcast and you're brand new. That's awesome. That are doing social media the right way, but aren't using it as like the end all be all, and understand the importance of offline, are doing real. I think of social media as like a key. You still got to hold the key. You still got to put the key in. You still got to turn the key, right? You still got to open the door and you still got to walk in. So it's an incredible tool, but understand that it's part of a bigger plan and bigger strategy.
I think you're spot on, right? It's kind of like old school and new school coming together, right? The best of, like you're saying, community, connection, culture, the X factor. I love how you kind of highlighted that. Has to meet this opportunity of a digital age, of a, connected platforms, our ability to have this type of attraction and conversation. And how do we bring these together? How do we reconcile kind of the best of all worlds? Maybe go one click deeper there, Rob. And can you give us some examples, some like tactical examples? And maybe you have a leader in your mind, or an organization in your mind, without saying who they are or what they are. What does that look like to maybe a newer person that's building a team, and or a leader that's leading a community? Like, what's that blend of like where social meets community, where digital meets connection? Like, what does that look like on a practical basis?
Well, let's look at this first off. The Latino markets use social media a little bit less, and they're the ones absolutely just dominating right now because they stuck to in person. So why are we seeing, everyone's trying to figure out why we're seeing the Latino markets absolutely crush it? Because they understand the importance of that X factor and culture, and they for the most part didn't become too heavy social media dependent. So if I'm looking at that, I'm looking at what are ways that we can meet more in person. Now, don't get me wrong. We treat this as a stay-at-home business. I'm not saying like old school where it's like every Saturday is 4-hour super Saturdays and every evening you're gone for 3 hours. Like, so please do not misinterpret. This is a balance and understanding, and the balance is always shifting. Sometimes it's too much, sometimes not enough. And you're going back and forth as you go. It's a living environment, a living culture, meaning that it's always adapting and changing. So if I'm a new person saying, well, Rob, this is great, but I don't know if my leader's going to listen, or I want to take charge, how would I do this? Okay, well, you have your convention. You've heard probably this cliche, and cliches are cliches for a reason because they're timeless principles, that leaders are born at events. Literally, almost every single leader will tell you how an event changed everything. And it may not just be one event, but in general, it is that important. There's just no substitute. Like, imagine trying to tell someone you went to the best concert ever, and they're like, Blake, how was it? Oh, you should have seen the lighting and the smoke and the outfit and this one song. Like, you can't even do it justice. Or your favorite vacation, you went to Bora Bora or the Maldives or Hawaii, the sand was soft in the sunset. They're just like, yeah, cool. Right? Like, you can't, it's the same thing. So I would make the convention, the biggest deal ever. And I know it sounds like people have heard this, but they're not making it a big enough deal. Like this needs to be constant promoting. This needs to be constant helping. Like I don't care if we used to have people, and because you used to have this at your company events, like people would drive sometimes 20 hours and they would rent like vans and they would carpool and then they'd get Airbnbs and fit in 15 people. Like I'm telling you, you have to help figure out the solutions. Or they would have on Google alerts. They didn't have that back in the day now of flights that come up that are available to get people there. Like you're thinking for every solution. So convention, make a much, much bigger deal. I promise you it will have one of the greatest impacts on your business. That return on your investment of time is massive. Next, well, you got people there anyways. What extra can you do to make it special? It doesn't have to be some big elaborate thing. It could be something fun you're all doing. Yeah, you should do your own little team event and meeting, lunches. Maybe it's all going to Top Golf or something fun. Maybe there's a beach spa you guys can do. Maybe it's a humanitarian project, right? But again, we're thinking in terms of culture. Those are all things you can do even if you have a team of 4 or 5. So if you're brand new, do that. If you're a leader, do that. So it doesn't matter your level. Now, if you're a leader, now you start thinking in terms of, okay, can we plan more local type, bigger, maybe regional events? Depends on how large your team is. Can we do leadership retreats? I'm not telling you got to break the bank. There are ways that you can get creative. It doesn't take money to make money. It takes creativity to make money. So there's ways you can start thinking of that. And then going back to the new person, great. Do you have 3 people that are local? Something that you can find a way to at least do something in person twice a month to create that culture, because as Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. You don't have the big team yet. How do you start creating it? What do you wish you had? Be the upline you wish you had and start creating that right now. So I know we could spend like a whole hour on that, but hopefully those are a couple of things.
Well, no, I love you made it practical for everybody, whether you're getting together with your 4 people in a local market, right? Or you're collaborating with people in your neighborhood, your town, your city to get together in those regional, right? Or you're just doubling down on whatever convention you're driving into. There's power in proximity. I laughed when you said Bora Bora, because it's like, if you zoom in to Bora Bora today, it ain't the same experience as being there, and it's the truth for our event. But it also piggybacks what you were saying earlier, because it's in that environment that our belief system, because of the references and the people and the energy and the emotion and the way these environments are designed to distill in such a compressed time frame, that our belief can go to possible, can go to probable, can go to inevitable. And it's where we get like the cliff notes, the short version of the best activities that are working from the best people that are getting results. So it's like it's the time leap. So I love the way you articulated all of that. And for everybody listening, yeah, connection, community, relationship. It's what people are craving right now more than ever. They may not realize it, but they are. And as Rob said, it is our X factor. It is what makes us different than any other brand or product or service trying to reach a consumer online or, at the mall today. What are you seeing the common traits or characteristics are of leaders that are winning today? People that are in winning seasons right now. They're moving to the top of that mountain. They're at the top celebrating. What are the characteristics you're seeing of people in that season right now?
I think we're seeing a lot more focus. We're seeing a lot more simplicity, whether it's company owners, whether it's a leader, whether it's the newest person. You think when you had a ton of success, like those of you that are listening, if you ever had a ton of success, what elaborate system did you follow? And 99.9% of people will tell you, well, I don't know. I didn't really. Yeah, and they'll go back to something that was crazy simple. You think when you've been around a lot of momentum, Blake, and I can even remember one of the systems, it was crazy simple. Like I can literally think some of the taglines that you guys had, and it was crazy simple. And you think when you're out of momentum and you're struggling, you create this 77 system step, right? That you never did, but it sounds really good and cute. And you create it. So you look at Steve Jobs, right? He comes in and they crush Apple and then they get rid of him. And then they got to bring him back in the 80s. And when they bring him back, what does he do? First thing he does, they think, okay, what is this guy going to do? And he gets rid of 90% of the products, 90% of the products, because he wanted to establish focus. So this is in all areas. We're seeing this with leaders. This is on social media. Stop trying to be on 10 platforms. Be the master at one platform. Be great at one platform. And once you get to that point, you can look at repurposing content or other platforms, but stop being the person that chases two rabbits and catches neither. You look at simplicity as far as what are you going to focus on? Like everyone wants more of what they don't have. Business or products. You don't see very many that are great at, I am so great at business builders and I'm also the master at customers. Both paths can be great. Choose a path, become great at it. Niches to riches. Now, I know the non-North Americans are listening and saying it's niche, but guys, it's both.
Niches to reaches.
And it doesn't rhyme, okay? So just listen to this crazy American if you are international. But it's niches to riches. And so you're seeing simplicity on which platform, simplicity on content, simplicity instead of promoting like a million products, like what's your lead product to get them in the door. And then after that, of course, you know, you can have your other products that go along with the system, but it's one product, one story, one system, and the system should be extremely simple. And then what's your focus? I tell everyone, right, and I see this with teams, 80% of your time should be focused on brand new people, invites, business or products. Now, that's really hard to do, but in network marketing, make the plan for the plan of the plan of the plan, right? I listened to 12 books and I read the comp plan 10 times and I know the next incentive trip and it's how many new people did you reach out to? Well, I worked 20 hours and I reached out to 2 this week. It's basically like Michael Phelps, greatest Olympian of all time, studying how to swim for 50 hours and then he swims for 5 minutes. That's what we do in network marketing. So you're seeing this peel back with companies and leaders and everyone of understanding that focus is a superpower. We talk about weapons of mass destruction, right? You know, like that's like the nuclear type ones. Well, in our world, it's the same acronym, but it's weapons of mass distraction. And so that's the goal is for you. And trust me, I got ADHD, entrepreneurial ADHD. It stands for dude has dreams. So I have squirrel moments all the time. So I'm always trying to figure out ways with my calendar and my environment and like everything of like focus. And every quarter I relook at it. What are the main things, right? What's my focus, right, as we go. And so that's what we're seeing a ton more of after everyone was making so much, doing nothing. And then they were distracted trying to figure it out. And now they're like laser focused on the simple things.
Weapons of mass distraction. I love it. But it's the truth, right? So I'm hearing focus, simplicity, distraction is the enemy of today. The attention economy, right, is what's needed today. And the only way to cut through is what you're giving us, right, is to focus on what matters and put the blinders on for everything else and make sure we distill that, right, to the people that we're in communication with. What else is not working right now?
Social media spamming, relying just on social media, the post and pray where people think they can make posts and just like pray, like please, like people just join my business. You have less people joining just from a post than ever before. And so I think people misinterpret what attraction marketing is. I think they hear the term attraction marketing and they think they're going to get so prolific at social media because let's be honest, who wants to talk to people? If you don't have to be rejected by people and you can just attract people, that's the goal. That's the dream. And because of that, people chase the shortcuts when in the end it's the long road. So look at attraction marketing is it's not being so prolific at social media. People just join you right and left. It's actually, if you get good at social media, now when you do the deal, you do the business like you're supposed to, and you make those new invites on the business or products, instead of having 1 out of 10 that say yes, maybe it's 2 out of 10 because you've warmed them up a little bit. They get to know you. They like your style. They like your content. They've learned maybe a little bit about your business or products in a non-spammy way. And 2 out of 10 may not sound like a lot, but you just doubled your numbers. And so those micro numbers can end up being a lot. And so I will say, going back to the beginning, like looping it all together, what is not working right now is just relying on social media. Again, I'm being clear. I love social media. I think social media, I teach it a lot. It's just done right. It can help you out. Don't use it as a crutch. But that's what I'm seeing the most of the people that are still stuck on that and still paying so much money to try to figure that out and figure out just the shortcuts. And they're not doing the rest of the equation. They're still getting smoked and they're stuck.
I think you're spot on. And, I understand the desire for efficiency, the desire for freedom in geography, to be able to build your business anytime, anywhere, palm of your hand, the desire to use the technology that we have at our disposal today to increase scale and increase reach. I think all that's great. But I also realize that like relationships is important, and like being around people that are like-minded energizes, and like being around, people you want to do things with and that fire you up and challenge you and make you better is something that people enjoy. If you create an environment, a culture, to use your word, right, that delivers those things that at the end of the day, we all really want ourselves anyway, we should want to bring people together, not only for our own growth, but for the enjoyment and the growth of those that we care about. It is, you don't want to sit behind a computer by yourself all the time, right? You want to be with people you enjoy being around, building something that matters. That's what we get, to do here. Rob, take out your crystal ball. Where can we go as a channel over the next 3 to 5 years? What can that possibility look like for us with what's in front of us? And what do we have to adapt? What do we have to shift? What do we have to make sure we do as leaders, right, of communities to move toward that vision?
We've got a lot more competition now, and that's not a bad thing. I mean, you think, with Amazon now, you order something and you expect to hear the next day. You expect one click. You expect more value. Like you said, it's the attention economy. So what we can expect is a great weeding out season. The companies, the leaders, even if you're brand new, right, you can tune in and you can consider this like a virtual upline, tuning into the shift, right? DSN does a phenomenal job, And the companies and the leaders and the newbies, whoever you are tuning in, that do not adapt will be left in the dust. Now, what does adapting mean? It's all the things we already talked about, right? We talked about the new school and the old school, the social media. We talked about the simplicity as we go. And on top of that, as we go, we have to provide more value. And yes, the culture can do that, but someone buys a product from you. Great. Is that it? It's done? You just hope they order forever? Like, what are you doing? Does your team have a system? Maybe you're a newbie and that overwhelms you. You can ask them. Maybe it's a simple Facebook group that you have, you provide value, or maybe you just create. Maybe your team isn't that big and you just start. It's not that hard to set reminders, to maybe send a quick text message, as eventually you can plug into bigger systems or create them as they go. But we've got to have that human touch. And I know there's systems that can create that. When I buy a product, I want to know that it works. Like, it's like at that point now, I want you to sell me. Like, what is it supposed to do? Am I supposed to sleep better, have more energy, or ride, or gain more muscle, or whatever it is, or the service is supposed to help me with this or that, whatever it is. Like, I was sold, that's why I bought it. Now I want to be sold like a ton so that I keep buying it, so it doesn't drop below my priority list of products that I order. And so we will start to see the next 3 to 5 years, these emerging trends of, we can't be lazy. Like, we got to be more innovative. We've got to find ways, right? Like we talked about with the social media and the culture and the X factor and the simplicity and all this. But on top of that, we've got to provide more value to the customer, value to the individual that comes into the business from a business standpoint. Blake, you and I know that the business behind the business is more than the money. I'm a better father, husband, leader, neighbor, human being because of this business.
Mm-hmm.
It's so, to me, just so empowering of the strengths I've created, the weaknesses I've overcome, and I still got a long ways to go. You can just ask my wife; she'll give you the list. But I'm becoming better. But we've got to provide that value and that culture. Can't we can help people develop greater skill set, greater leadership. We can get, and you're starting to see companies get back to the basics. You are what you recognize. You can say humanitarian is important. Do you recognize it? No. You can say the newest person getting their new signups is important. Do we recognize it? No. You can say someone making their money back is important. Do you recognize it? You are what you recognize. So don't tell me how important it is to you if you're not recognizing it, because then that tells me everything. And so I'm looking at all of those things and some of those fundamentals that we got away from, and seeing companies right now that are really hungry, leaders that are really hungry, even newbies that are like, you know what, maybe I don't have the upline that I want, or maybe I like my upline, but I want more. And they're tuning into stuff like this so they can, right, have more, build more, be more. Because I looked at some of these companies that maybe were stagnant for a while. You go to their events and they just had so many people there because they provided so much just intrinsic value. I didn't do personal development before network marketing. Now I've read / listened to over 1,100 books. Like, I'm obsessed with learning to become better at everything from a father, husband, leader, coach, consultant, speaker, right? All of the things as we go. And so we're seeing that, right? That business behind the business, the value for both the customer and the builder that's coming in right now, combined with the simplicity, the focus, right? Social media, environment of all of that. And so the ones that are doing that are planting those seeds, that are taking the action, we're already starting to see some new innovative, and some of them just do the basics that have not been done overall very well for a long time. And it's fun to see. So it's a great sifting season right now where there's great tragedy, there's great opportunity. There was more millionaires created during the Depression than any other time till the dot-com era. So again, where there's great tragedy, there's great opportunity. And so I look at it right now, we have incredible opportunity for those that are willing, right? Those that are hungry and willing to make those small changes. And sometimes it's big changes depending on your culture.
Well, Rob, I think that's a beautiful vision. And the truth is, if we all create an environment where we as individuals are getting better every single day, better in our business, better entrepreneurs and better leaders, but more so, as you've highlighted, better us, better people at a human level. Number one, we're not only never going to quit, we're going to want to show up and give our full self in that direction every day. And if we do that and create that environment, so will our team. And I love how you kind of highlighted, because that brings us back to the best of what we do in the midst of bringing products and services and technology and innovation and opportunity and all this stuff. I think that's the heartbeat of community, right? Which is the DNA that makes us different. I want to be mindful of time, Rob, and leave some time for any closing thoughts or anything we haven't covered. We've covered so many valuable themes, but before we get to that, can we just do like a super rapid fire round? I want to ask you like 3 questions. There's similar questions I've asked most guests. It's more for my own personal curiosity, because I just love answers to these questions in like short one sentence statements. Does that work? We do a rapid fire? Okay, so it's kind of like a rapid fire shift section. Obviously, shift, the name of the show. We're in a season of shift in the world. We're in a season of shift in our channel. We've highlighted that. We're always in a season of shift as individuals. But beyond that, it really gets to kind of like the mindset. And you, throughout today's conversation, right, have given us shifts in perspective that allow us to approach things differently and get different results. So I want to kind of narrow in to maybe some of the most defining shifts in belief, in perspective, in inner dialogue that you've told yourself at kind of very critical moments in your journey, starting with professional. So 17 years, any moment. What's one of the most significant or defining shifts that you made that made the difference in your professional career?
I had to come up with a saying, and it said this, and I won't say anything after to keep it short. And I said this every single day, 10 times a day. Compensation always catches up to skill set and effort, but it's almost always massively delayed.
I love that. And absolutely true. So, second question, same question, but in your personal life. So, business aside, right? RobSperry as a human being in your life, what has been one of the most significant shifts that has allowed you to become who you are today?
The two questions everyone asks themselves is, can I do it? Is it worth it? And so for me, I'm looking for evidence to answer those two questions for anything big that I want to accomplish.
I love that. Can I do it? Is it worth it? I mean, if you just approach that to life, right? And everything you spend your life and energy into, like talk about a way to focus, right? Where we put our time. Okay, so last question. This is kind of like, the idealist in me, right? The optimist, the big picture across our channel that you and I both love. We've dedicated our lives to it, right? Everybody that's listening to this, you're a part of an amazing community worldwide that is direct selling. And I often think about like, what would happen, Rob, if all of a sudden everyone that's a part of this amazing channel, doesn't matter their company or their brand or where they're at in the world, were like united in a direction? I don't think there'd be a more powerful community in the world. So my question to you, let's say you could in this moment, like snap your fingers and immediately give a shift to every single person involved in direct selling at any level in the world. What gift would you give them if you could?
Real abundance mentality. We talk about it, but we see actions completely different when we see people not joining your team or leaving your company. So real, true abundance mentality.
Man, the world would be a beautiful place. And we'd be feeling better, right? Not holding on or
There's
feeling
enough to
like
go
we need to hold
around,
on.
right?
I love it. Feels good just saying it. Or like I said, I want to leave time for anything we haven't covered. We've covered a lot, and I know that everybody listening to this right now, there's something that you can grab and you can immediately apply, whether it's just understanding that the peaks and the valleys and the seasons are normal. So if you're in that season, keep going. And Rob gave you some mindset and skill set, right? Focusing on belief. Where are we at on the belief scale, right? Rate yourself. Where are you on the activity scale? Be honest with yourself to get you to that next level. The power of community and connection. Yeah. Old school, new school, digital community, bringing these worlds together. But that X factor of culture, plugging in, getting your team to plug in. So you can shift the belief. You can learn what's best. You can transfer energy. You can get on that journey of becoming the best you that you can be. Focus, 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 and simplicity, right? In a world of, weapons of mass distraction. I'm going to steal that. I love it. So we have covered a ton, and obviously the shifts that you just gave us on a personal level. Rob, is there anything else you want to leave us with? Anything else on your mind or your heart before we kind of round out today's conversation?
Yeah, I would just say what I just said a couple of minutes ago, how I challenge myself. Can I do it? Is it worth it? Every single new prospect that's looking at your business is asking themselves, can I do what you're doing? And the second question is the harder one. They're asking themselves, but is it worth it? Is it worth it to get rejected from friends and family and online? And we know it's worth it. But you're asking yourself these two questions as well to hit the next rank. Can I do it? Is it worth it? And you may say, Rob, how can you tell me that, yes, I can when you don't know me? Because I've spoken in 23 countries. I've seen every walk of life, every type of background, old, young, male, female, everything you can imagine. And I've seen success from the craziest, wildest stories. And so I do believe you can do it. And I do know that it is worth it.
Oh, Rob, I know I said I'd ask you one closing thought, but I'm going to tee up.
Go ahead.
I'm going to tee up at the end, and then we'll wrap because I can't not. So, first time I ever saw you speak, I think you were asked to give a keynote, and it really was around what is, I know, your kind of life motto. And I know this is your most requested keynote, and you can talk an hour just on this one statement that I'm throwing you at the very end. But to kind of round out this whole kind of life philosophy, die with memories and not dreams. Maybe round out today's conversation with what that means to you and what that can mean to us.
Yeah, we all go through different experiences, and I went through, short version, a massive tragedy, a massive death when I was 16 years old, and there was some guilt, and there could have been even more guilt, and it was definitely a turning point in my life where I felt like I had a 95-year-old person's perspective at 16 years old, like no joke. To this day, I still think about death of the close ones that I love on a daily basis, not in a morbid way, in a way that actually gives me perspective to live each day with much more intention. I still have my bad days, bad moods, so I'm still human, but I'm telling you, like, I even thought today, like, people probably think I'm crazy. In my mind, I was thinking this at the gym. I'm like, I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my life. I love what I do. I love people. Like, that's literally how I think. And it's in large part because of that. So we do crazy cool specific trips for our kids at 12 and 16. And my wife and I do several trips, just her and I, a year. We do 7 family vacations. And it all revolved around this massive tragedy that I had, that I didn't have the motto then. I had the motto without the exact words. Mm-hmm. And I heard these words, still don't know who to give credit for the quote, but it was over a decade ago. And I'm like, that's it. That's it. That's my life, because one day we're going to be on our deathbed, and that's all that's going to matter. It's going to be the relationships and the memories. And so I know what I'm working for. I know what I'm trying to fulfill my talents for. And that makes life even more fun and fills me with tons of gratitude. So thanks for asking, though.
I loved it when I heard it, and I loved it when you just said it again. And may we all, at the end of the day, whenever that day is, God willing, have a whole memory full of moments and memories, and not dreams left on the table with a bunch of regret. And you and I both know that this industry, right, wherever you're at right now, can be a vehicle and can be a path to create those moments. And today's conversation, it gave you a next step, regardless of who you are and where you're at. And I hope you guys listen to it. I hope you re-listen to it. More than listening to it, I hope you actually bring it into what you live every day and apply it, right, to move your life forward. Rob, thank you not only for the time today, right, and pouring into us with such kind of not only vulnerability, authenticity, but just energy. And more so, thank you for what you do across our channel every day, for all the people you coach, all the communities you're leading, right? And I know you're doing a lot just as a service to our channel, let alone the people that you're kind of mentoring on a day-to-day. And for everybody that is listening, thank you for being here with us. You know where to find this, right? So this is live. If you want to listen to us on Apple or Spotify or all the places, or what I love is you can see Rob. I mean, he looks good. Like, you can feel the energy. Join us on YouTube. And again, a shift is a gift. So if you got value from today, that's the only reason we're here. Apply it. And if you got value, you can let us know by sharing it in your threads and your groups and your community with those that are alongside you on this journey. Obviously, shiftpodcast.com has not only today's conversation, but all the amazing past conversations of our guests, and the ability to nominate people that you think whose story we should shine a spotlight on. So until the next time, Rob, appreciate you, brother. Thank you for the time today. And for everybody out there, let's make the shift.